I used to have this tagline on my email signature, helping you become known before you're needed. Because that's what radio does. It helps you become known before you're needed. So that when that need occurs, the car finally breaks down. It's like, well, I've been listening to, Keenest Auto and Don Larson Superstore for the last 6 months on the radio. I'm going to talk to one of them. Or it's going to be in the first half page of a Google search.
Welcome to the Main Street Marketing Podcast. I am Skip Ranke, your host, and today I have Ed Guzman from Life 102.5 here to talk with us about radio and how it's still relevant for businesses in today's world. So thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing. Tell us about Life 102.5 and how you got started in radio.
So it's a circuitous story. I joined Life 102.5 3.5 years ago as a director of business development. I mainly work with businesses. Businesses are listeners too, but we're listener supported. But I work with the businesses, and it started out during the pandemic. My wife and I run a retail business in Stoughton, Wisconsin, that supports Life 102.5, and the pandemic ruined retail that year. We had 50% of our results from the previous year, and the business had just sustained us, and now it wasn't. We had kids in college, and we decided that one of us needs to go back in the workforce, and Life 102 needed sales experience. I had sales experience, and I joined them in January of 2001, and I've been loving it. I get to work with in addition to the businesses, the nonprofits and the concerts and the promotions. Get to work with the Life Fest folks. Toby Max coming to Life Fest Sunday. So it's kind of fun. Gotten to meet some industry musicians and stuff like that. So, and then in addition to working with the business partners, we have a streaming product, which I know might be a topic today, and so I work specifically with the streaming pre-roll partners as well. We have some partners that where we the first 10 or 15 seconds of a pre-roll or a stream. They get to introduce their business during that as well.
Yeah, that's how we got connected with Life 102.5.
You're a streaming partner.
Yeah, and it's for our business, like I was telling you before we started here. It's made a difference for us. Well, primarily as a Christ-centered business, we want to support Life 102.5. I listen to it all the time. My wife listens to it, but it's just a great message that's sent out every single day through the music, which is just amazing. But it really has helped us because we wanted to grow more between the Oconomowoc and Madison area. Yeah. So for us to get involved with that just was a natural fit because that's primarily the audience is in that area. So it was really a great fit for us to get involved with it. So thanks for reaching out and talking to me about it because otherwise I wouldn't be a partner.
That's right. There you go.
Pretty awesome. So when it comes to radio, though, I mean, tell me a little bit about what are some of the myths about radio?
Well, the biggest myth is that it may not be as relevant as it used to be, and it's still very, very relevant. 86% of people say they listen to radio at least once a week. That is up there or even above logging onto the internet, watching a television program. So it's still either the most or nearly the most relevant that people will say they do at least once a week. We have a client in Madison that at the same time they started doing dense name recognition promos with us, also did TV, late night TV, albeit. And as of May, they had more leads, more clients from radio than they had from their TV, and the TV had cost them 4 times as much. So it still is, highly relevant. About 6 years ago, 7 years ago, car manufacturers started the process of stopping to put radios in cars. They figure everything's going to Bluetooth and streaming, and and they stopped putting a physical radio in there, and that freaked out the radio industry. But we really haven't seen a dramatic impact. Yes, every year there's a slight leak in listenership, and that over the air, but that tends to equal or parallel those same amount of people now listening via streaming. So while over the air may slightly be trending lower, but very lightly, you're seeing that same gain or more on the streaming end.
Was that, and so that happened with you on your side? So with the listenership, you say it's just coming down a little bit on the radio side, but your streaming site is
Growing.
really growing a lot?
Absolutely growing, yes. We're getting well over 1.5 million streaming sessions a year on our station, over 100,000 a month, especially big in December with Christmas music. Our on-air, we get, our Nielsen says we get 71,000 unique listeners a week in a 80-mile radius of Madison. But yeah, so that 6 years ago was maybe 80,000. So it's not dramatic.
That's not huge.
And the ratings in the area is still not digital. It's still survey. So 3 or 4 people forget to turn in their cards, and it can dramatically change the demographics. But streaming, we started getting good streaming data right around 2020, and it is more than doubled in my 3.5 years, the amount of people that are streaming streaming life, at least my particular station in general. It's more than doubled in the 3.5 years that I've been there. So.
Yeah, I can tell you that, talking with, clients that we have and people that I know, that it's actually split. There are some of my friends they listen to the radio side of it, and then about half of them they stream it. And I kind of asked, well, why don't you do the streaming part of it and you do the radio? And he says, I'm a radio guy. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Kind of makes. I guess people have their they have their routines. We're all creatures of habit, but if they have the routine, that's what they do. But I don't stream it. And I think about it. I stream it when I'm at my house, but when I'm in my car, I play it on the radio.
Yeah, and we play it mostly in our station at our studio, our retail studio, and then it's on the radio there, and then I tend to have it on the radio in the car. So
okay,
I don't particularly consciously stream it, other than to check to make sure the messages are playing accurately. Then I'll stream it, just to check out, especially when I load new messages.
Yeah, right. Like that. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you face in the industry right now?
That's a good question. The biggest challenge I have, I work in listener supported radio, and so 2 challenges are there. We're FCC regulated differently than commercial radio, so we're similar to Wisconsin Public Radio, Wisconsin Public Television, in that we technically can't have an ad. We can thank our supporters, we can thank our underwriters in something that sounds like an ad.
Okay.
No call to action, no inducement to buy, no comparative language, third person, what's the word? Third person tense. It's all you, your, or it's they, their versus we do this or we do that or we can do this. So my challenge is people wanting to say very salesy things. And my other challenge in getting prospects is I will find solid, I tend to work with Christian businesses. I'll find a solid Christian businessman, but find out he doesn't listen. If he doesn't listen, it's hard for him to be passionate about the station, the station. Right. So those are my, challenges. I try to shape those challenges, and this was, this can be done in commercial radio too, is especially when we're talking about small businesses, and I know that you work mostly with small businesses. Most of my business partner sponsors are small, what I would categorize as a smaller business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we really don't have any very large businesses. If they're listening to a format they trust, whether it's a podcast, whether it's radio, whether it's streaming, if they hear you mentioned, it can really be shaped more as branding. In other words, we have a good name. There's a lot of trust in our brand, and if someone is, we do vet our. It's not if your check clears, you're a partner. If you have horrible Google ratings, if you're doing anything unusual, that would be very anti-Christian. Obviously, if a drinking establishment, not necessarily evil or anything, but we wouldn't put a drinking establishment on. We wouldn't put a vape shop on.
Right.
We wouldn't put a Reiki master on. But if you have horrible Google reviews, we're not going to put you on either. So there is some vetting, but so I do try to coax people that this is all about branding. We're linking your good name to ours to yours, and that creates an immediate trust factor, an immediate more likeliness. And I did come equipped with some data where, and on almost every major buying decision, there was 10 or 20 points of increased gap of more likely to trust a message that's coming from a brand that you trust.
Right.
And in our case, our brand is Christian radio, faith-based radio, contemporary Christian music. But branding can, if they, even in the commercial world, certain stations have certain strong brands, certain things that you expect of them, certain character and of their on-air staff, and if that is in alignment with you, then there's, you're getting something above and beyond the commercial. You're getting brand association with that format or with that.
Yeah, and we've noticed that. I mean, and I was interesting that you say that you vet your clients, because you did your. I mean, when you called us, you said, I've done the research on your organization. I've taken a look at your Google reviews, and you mentioned that to me specifically, that you vetted us, and which I was very happy to hear. And then it's good to hear that you do that with everybody else. But it does tie, because of the reputation that Life 102.5 has, and when we talk to people that are listeners to the station and they call us and they talk to us, it's interesting when you say there is a very immediate trust factor that comes along with that. And they say, well, I heard you on Life 102.5. I'd really like to get some more information. I said, well, thank you very much. And they say, well, the conversation is much easier. And at that point in time when you're talking with the people, because they believe in your station, they believe in your messaging, and they believe in what you stand for, and then that translates over to us. So that's interesting that you said that. But you also mentioned something in there about podcasts.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you a question: podcasts or radio? What's more important, or what's more popular, you think? Right
and
now?
The answer there is yes. It is. Podcasts are like tattoos. Pretty soon, everybody's going to have one.
That's a great analogy. I mean, I even got one.
You just got one. No, so what I observed, and is they exploded during the pandemic. If they weren't already a big deal, they were a big deal during the pandemic, and you saw a large growth in content, and people that are providing podcasts, whether it be Spotify or whatever, growing in their ability to deliver it to you. We have a podcast network. It's called the Wow God, is the name of the network. We have 10 different podcasts. We get about 300,000 unique impressions a month, but 200,000 of those are a single podcast called The Unfolding out of Champaign, Illinois. But even Dave and Natalie in the morning just started a podcast. So very relevant, growing. From a media company standpoint, in addition to selling the pre-roll, there's typically a mid-roll and a post-roll or an end-roll. So they create opportunities to have very targeted advertising demographically. Our podcast people, if we put an ad on a podcast, they can say, just give me Wisconsin ISPs, just give me, to the extreme, they could even do more, parse that demographic even further.
That's interesting.
So so those messages inside the podcast can be very targeted, but it's a great way to, podcasts can do entertainment, they can do information, and like you said, they're geared to that, usually no longer than 60 minutes, oftentimes 30 minutes, usually no less than 15 minutes, just something that someone can download and listen to or play in their car on their Bluetooth if they don't have a radio, and just hear exactly what they want to hear and nothing more and nothing less. So we, as a radio network, knew that we had to be, have a strong offering, and we see that growing year over year. We saw the most rapid growth in 2020 to 2022, and it's we've seen tapered growth, but still growth since then. And I think it's just a combination of so much. There's just so much content out there.
Yeah. Tell me, you said that you saw like the biggest growth between 20 and 22, obviously with COVID, was part of that, I'm assuming. But did you see listenership of the radio and the streaming skyrocket at the same time? Or was that just
So there was a
if you know, that's
yeah. So there was a brief phenomenon that we heavily promoted. During the deepest part of if you take the deepest 14 months of the pandemic, what we saw was podcasts, going up, streaming going up, but over the air was declining, but it was in its very low slope decline, just like it still is. But there was a huge phenomenon in that there was only two formats during that time of radio that actually saw strong over-the-air growth, and one of them was contemporary Christian music, and one of them was talk radio. And when you look at, in any market, public radio, talk radio, and classic 80s rock are going to be usually the top, three stations. So we were very encouraged to see contemporary Christian music, while we weren't overtaking other categories.
Right.
We saw it growing, and we looked at that as during a time of just complete turmoil.
Right.
People were tuning out the culture and tuning into their faith, and for those reasons, still today, the listenership is strong because the culture is, in some cases, failing our youth, and it's getting to be hard to listen to the culture, follow the culture, and sometimes people are looking for a respite from that in contemporary Christian music, and the
Amen.
Uplifting messages, uplifting banter by the on-air staff is at least a respite for that. Our talk radio format is Faith Radio, which is in our AM signal, and that is similarly structured to other talk radio where there's 30-minute segments. in this case, 30-minute sermons a lot during the day, and then strong anchors in the morning and evening like Carmen LaBerge and Susie Larson.
That's when we started listening more. It was in the pandemic. We were so sick and tired of hearing all the stuff that was going on and around.
Right.
And my wife just said, I don't want to listen to it anymore. I'm
Right.
done. She goes, I've been listening to Life 102.5. She goes, I've got it on all the time. And so when we were home and you couldn't go anywhere, that's all we had on. We didn't turn on every once in a while we had to turn on the news because you wanted to see kind of what was going on in the world,
yeah. But you listen to the news a long time, you get tense, So.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually more stressful to turn on the news than it was for me to actually. It's just like it's okay, fine. We're still in a pandemic. Okay, great. I didn't want to hear about how you had to wear masks anymore and all this other stuff. I'm like, I was just so sick of it, and it was just so nice to be able to just hear positive messages and great music, and I think that amongst other things, but it just really kept our spirits high.
Yeah.
And plus being able, we were also doing, I was doing a lot of live streaming for churches during that span of time to keep the message of God going out to people so they could hear it. And the pandemic was not a big deal for me, from a stress perspective, because I vacated it and I just listened to music and I helped people get the word of God out. It was just, flew right through it. It was hard. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But it was just like
in some cases it was a big bowling pin reset, or a reboot. It's like, okay, it's like tech support said, okay, the world just needs a reboot. Let's just shut it off.
Control Alt Delete.
Control Alt Delete. Control Alt Delete again, and see what comes up. So it did give people some time to pause
and relook at some things.
Right.
I know the members of my family did that, and we did, and it was a good thing to take a look at. It was fun. Yeah. We didn't stop a click. I mean, we were busy all the way through the pandemic. I mean, I think in some cases we were busier than we were prior to it, because all the stuff we had done prior to the pandemic, like quotes, business owners pulled out and they said, hey, I should probably do that now. It's like, oh man. And so, I mean, we had websites going and videos going. We were making websites for businesses free of charge, like restaurants and things in town, just trying to help people out to keep the doors open, to keep things moving, because we're a small community, so you want to make sure you maintain
stored up some treasure in heaven.
So. Oh yeah, well, yep. So tell me a little bit about what are some of the biggest advantages that business owners can have by getting into radio. Or streaming,
Yeah, and so it looks like I've already my biggest thought on that was the branding. The biggest thing they can gain is creating a brand and a branding strategy, and it's always good to mix radio with other types of social media. I always look at you go back to 1920 or whatever. I mean, radio was the first social media. I mean, it's
sure,
and it's still very social to this day. But yeah, so they the biggest thing they can gain is brand identity. They I remember when we went on the radio, and my wife and I, small business, went on the radio in March of 2013, and I braced myself for the onslaught of either in-person visits or web orders, and and that doesn't happen.
No.
I'd kind of hoped it would happen, but it doesn't happen. There's a science to people have needs, and those needs come up at different times.
Mm-hmm.
And when that need arises, that's when that person is going to recall someone that is known. And I used to have this tagline on my email signature: helping you become known before you're needed. Because that's what radio does. It helps you become known before you're needed. So that when that need occurs, the car finally breaks down. It's like, well, I've been listening to Keenest Auto and Don Larson Superstore for the last 6 months on the radio. I'm going to talk to one of them. Or it's going to be in the first half page of a Google search.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that beyond the first half page, it starts to tail off real fast, and I'm sure you have better data on that. But it's the event occur, the buying decision, the buying need happens, and then it's like, what is top of mind? And so your goal with radio is to be top of mind, helping you become known before you're needed, so that when you're needed, boom, you can step right in. So conversely, sometimes the biggest bane is people say, I'm not hearing people tell me they're hearing me, and sometimes they can be hearing you without you necessarily seeing results, but just trust that they are hearing you. And then there's velocity with anything, whether it's print, whether it's TV, whether it's radio. With us, I always say the absolute minimum you want to be on the air is 6 months, because it really takes that long for people to start saying, I can say that I've heard that on the air.
Right.
We can actually build some science to it. We can tell listener hours per week versus other station listener hours per week. Ours, our format is we have a high listener hour per week average, and then we can take that by the time it's broadcast, by the times a day, and we put that into a formula. And it says over 6 months, every single one of those 71,000 people should have heard you at least 6 to 12 times. And there's another science with an Italian guy that has a long last name that I forgot to bring the thing, but it says you really need to hear something 6 times to say you've heard it.
Yes.
And so I always encourage people, we don't take a contract less than 6 months as a part, probably because it's more of a sponsorship thing versus again, taking ads. I don't know if that's an FCC requirement or not, but and I always say, really, if you don't think you'd want to do it for a year, wait. But we do periodically take some 6 months contracts. But what we have found is more than half of our partners have been with us 6 years or longer, and 4 of our 40 partners have been with us since the inception of our partnership program back in 2009. So we have long-standing partners and with Diakonos Designs, my wife and I's business, we've now been on the air 11 years. Mm-hmm. I can't go anywhere in Dane County and start a conversation with a Christian and not have them say, I've heard of you. So it's like, but it's taken 11 years.
Yeah, I mean, and we tell people all the time, marketing is not an overnight thing.
It's not an overnight
thing.
It
is consistency and it's longevity.
Yeah.
And the business owners that a part of you have to educate businesses. You tell them that, and they're saying, "Well, I'm looking to get orders, right? I'm not getting any orders." Well, we just started the ad yesterday.
Right.
They're not. The floodgates aren't going to open unless you've got the latest, greatest widget that's the best thing since sliced bread that nobody else has, and even then, that's not going to happen. And because it used to be, we tell people, if people got to hear you and see that message 6, 15, 20, 30 times, because everyone has so much coming at them constantly all day long. You think about how many ads you hear and how many ads you see on your phone and how many things pop up. It's the frequency. People aren't going to remember if they only hear you 2 times.
Right.
If they hear you 6, 8, and then like when we run Hulu ads for people, we tell them, look, if you want to spend $500 for the state of Wisconsin, maybe somebody might see that ad once. So you're depending on that ad to be seen once and people to remember you. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So when you talk about that, that's why I love the streaming platform, because of the amount of listenership that we get and how many plays we get. Our message is very simple and very clean, and people remember it. When you talk to them, they're like, "Oh, I remember hearing that now." So when you say that, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And it makes, like I say, we have some people that call in that area, and they say, "Oh, I've heard about you on the radio." It's like very cool. Because then when somebody, we did have a client, someone that called us, I'm having a real problem with this. Can you help me out with it? Absolutely. It's not a problem. But they remembered it. When you say top of mind, that's the key. being top of mind and having that frequency played.
Yeah.
Somebody had said once you should be heard 27 times a week or something like that. Is that like a rule of thumb, or is it 84 times a month or something? I can't remember exactly what it was.
It's a formula that you build a bunch of things into. So it would be a factor of listenership, hours that the listener listens, and how many times it's played over what span of time. 27. So when we do these deep, what I call deep name recognition is my buzzword for a promo. So like right now, you guys are a promo sponsor for the state fair. So your name is getting mentioned 12 to 16 times a day on the air. So now, and that's going to be 130 to 160 during the length of the promo. I remember this, the 6 was being the minimum. I think there's an optimum, and it may be the 27 times. I know that more, at the end of the day, more is better.
Right.
The on air, you're spending $15 to $20 every time you're for like a normal partner 15-second dedicated spot. But with streaming, you mentioned you get a lot for your money. And first of all, on air, you could look at as a shotgun. There's a variety of listenership over the air in a variety of locations throughout on streaming. 100% of those people that have clicked yes to stream that station want to listen to that station. Now, they may not want to listen to your message, but they definitely want to listen to that station. So if your values are aligned with their station and the message aligned with that station, there's a high rate of connection there.
Right.
But those can be as little as 1.8 cents per mention or per impression.
Right.
And so you're getting thousands of impressions for the same price as 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 on-air messages. The on-air, if you're on air, you're heard on air and on the stream. If you're streaming pre-roll, you're only heard on the stream. But again, 15% of people only stream, and as many as 45% of our particular listening audience stream at least once per month. I think that data is already 11 months old, so that might even be a little higher. I saw another stat in this industry data I got that more than half of people have streamed at least once in the last month, something.
Right.
So,
you say in life, like I say, I know a lot of people that are kind of half and half. They mix it. They're kind
Right.
of like 6 one way and half dozen the other.
Yeah,
they kind of do. They can't hear what they want to hear from the streaming perspective, but on the radio, so they go over here. So it is mixed. Everybody I know goes back and forth. It's not just one or the other.
Yeah.
So, but again, everyone's got their preferences and what they do. So when we talk about you working with a lot of different businesses, when you go to them and you talk to them, what are some of the tips that you tell them as a business owner to be prepared when they get into radio? Obviously you mentioned longevity. Don't plan on doing this short term. Right.
I need to make sure that they're a listener. If I know that I have a huge hurdle if they're not a listener. I love to share Diakonos' story, and the story is we have spent X number of dollars over 11 years on radio on our business partnership, so quote unquote radio advertising. We've never seen that come back in revenue, and ideally, you want to see that come back in profit. I mean, so which is 4 times revenue or whatever.
Right.
When we started it, we had a top line of $107,000 with no profit. In fact, we were losing money. and we signed an agreement to be a $3,000 a year sponsor of a radio station. It made no sense, earthly whatsoever. I felt a need to do it. We were passionate about the ministry. My one earthly inkling was, I think it's going to make us seem a little bigger than we really are, because we were really a small mom and pop business in Stoughton, Wisconsin. And to cut out some of the story and fast forward, 6 years later, 2019, God had tripled. I feel like our faithfulness to this ministry was answered, and maybe answered by God. That our revenue is now triple. Our profits were $70,000. It was enough to sustain my wife and I. And so God had provided. He didn't provide something that could point to any one individual sale here and there. We did get that. We got Ginny, the dairy farmer in Monroe that couldn't leave her cows and was ordering online through our website and heard about us on the radio. So I mean, we would have people walk in and share a lot of fun stories. So we did have that. Clearly had that, but I looked at that as God. We did get bigger. God did provide, and it and our faithfulness was answered. And that has probably been one of the most impactful stories that I could share when I work with clients. The other, what helps me is if they. Sometimes they've already made up a decision that makes it easy. That I love the station. My wife loves it. My wife says we got to do this. Whatever. that helps. But and if I see them, wringing their hands over, can I get a few more extra words in my 15 seconds, or can I get something that mentions we're doing an anniversary sale or whatever, then it's like, you just got to trust that they're going to hear your name and that they're going to, find you, whether it's your URL at the end of the message, whether it's your tagline. The FCC does allow a reasonable tagline. And in between the name, Life 102 thanks this person, and the end, it doesn't matter a whole lot what we're saying. It's great to have that be informative and useful, but it doesn't have to be overly salesy. It doesn't have to be overly dazzling, because they just want to know at the end of the day you're a Christian. And sometimes I'll joke with, I've got a, auto repair guy that's kind of rough around the edges. And I would always joke with them. I said, "Have you, are people hearing you on the radio?" And our standing joke is, They're like, people are saying, "Oh, you're a Christian," And so anyway, so I tease him, he teases me back. But that's the. I forgot the question. Sorry, but I think I was done. I think I was done answering it.
Tell them what they need to be ready for. And
yeah, so you're right. Just trying to prepare them so that they don't get discouraged. We had a 8-year partner get discouraged, and some of it was over expanding into a new line of business. I think that may have just put a crunch on them, and they really wanted to see some results and quickly, and they didn't, and had to scale back. It was somewhat of a tough economy, inflation scenario that does that has this tough economy has been hurting some businesses, and so it I just say, but don't lose heart, hang in there. People know that if you're that people are hearing your message.
Stay consistent.
And consistency is the key. Yeah.
That's why that's why we signed up for another year, and we'll be signing up for years afterwards, because we believe in it and we love the ministry, and we think it's just amazing we're part of it. So
awesome.
And we got the opportunity to sponsor the listener party for Lauren Daigle this year at the State Fair, which was pretty cool.
Awesome to hear that another year. Well, I'll bring contracts with me.
There you go. So we're leading into that. So now we're going to do the Life 102.5 easiest quiz.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the easiest quiz we're going to play this game. It's super simple. What I'll do is I'll ask you 10 simple questions about Life 102.5, and you have to answer all within.
Well, see, I didn't know they were about Life 102.5. They were just, I thought it was a quiz show. So
No,
I have had no time to prep.
You've had no time to practice, and this is the easiest one in the world.
right.
So, all right. So, what are the names of your morning show co-hosts?
Oh, that's easy. That's Dave Konar, who's been there 11 years, and Natalie Gross just joined us. She goes by Natalie in the mornings. People know Dave's last name.
She was a great addition.
She's great, and she came from a local TV station that was skewing very away from Christianity and very politically extreme, and just wanted to get out of TV. And so it's a rare thing for someone to go from TV to radio.
Yeah, but she's a good fit.
But she's absolutely loving it.
Good.
Absolutely loving it, and thriving. And her and Dave had an immediate chemistry. It sounds, and the comment we're getting is, it sounds like they've been on the air for years.
It does.
So yeah,
It's really good. Second question: name one solo artist that plays on the station.
Name one
Solo artist that plays on the station.
that plays on the station. Lauren Daigle.
There you go. Perfect. What day of the week is Drive-Through Difference Day?
Drive-Through Difference is usually on Fridays.
Perfect. Name one podcast offered through Life 102.5.
The Unfolding.
There you go. Answer number 5. What is Life 102? You hope you know this one. What is Life 102.5's toll-free phone number?
866-999-1025.
Perfect. Yes or no? Is it possible to volunteer with Life 102.5?
Absolutely. And we have the best volunteers, and we're always looking for more. But man, do we actually have a volunteer leader that leads our volunteers. But we have the best volunteers.
Awesome. And I'm going to do another little plug here. Name a recent or upcoming event that Life 102.5 has been a part of.
Yes. So we're going to be at the State Fair. They've actually got 2 Christian concerts this year, but probably the fun one is going to be the Lauren Daigle Andrew Ripp concert on Friday night, August 9th. And we're actually doing a listener party. There'll be a tent right outside the stage area where there'll be food and a chance to potentially meet Lauren and Andrew and meet our on-air staff. And we're giving away tickets all this week through the 31st.
Yep.
And Paragon is sponsoring that, and we're so grateful for their sponsorship.
Thank you for the opportunity to do that. Name one band that plays on the station. One band, not a solo artist.
One band.
Yep.
Well, I like. I'm almost trying to think of my favorite. At this moment, what is my favorite?
Who's your go-to?
Who's my go-to? At the end of the day, I have to go to the Newsboys. I don't know why. That's old school.
There you go.
They were just at Life Fest, and I was gonna go there Thursday, and was a late scratch. And
Mercy Me is mine.
Mercy Me. How can you forget Mercy Me?
For King and Country.
Oh yes.
The list goes on and on.
Yes.
All right. What city does Life 102.5 primarily serve?
It's mainly serves Dane County. It serves Madison. Where our tower is on the west side at Elver Park. Only about 13% of radio stations still own a tower, and we own a tower. Most of them rent their towers.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's I mean,
Did not know that.
it would have been the exact opposite 30 years ago. 87% probably would have owned their tower, and
But now only 13%.
13. Yeah, and maybe it's a little higher, but it's there's only two of our 15 stations own their own tower. Us in Des Moines. Everyone else, they rent space on usually there's a lot involved in maintaining a tower. and it's easy to just rent a little thingy. That's you hang on someone's tower and you pay them rent. Ironically, competing Christian station Air One out of Rockford is hangs their little thing on our Faith Radio tower. We have a tiny Faith Radio tower in Sun Prairie, and they hang it off of that. So
interesting.
Our one at Elver Park though is 300 feet. Or no, I can't remember if it's 300 feet tall or 300 feet above the area.
Still, that's a high.
It's high.
Yeah. And the last question: when did you start with 102.5?
Started in January of 2001.
Perfect.
And
2021.
I'm sorry, 2021. Yes, and
You would have been there a long time.
And as much as I love it, I will probably, I know I'm going to be there at least 3 more years. Beyond that, it's in God's control, because then I'll, want to be looking maybe for a different challenge. But I know for sure I'll be here at least another 3 years.
All right. Well, I look forward to working with you for at least 3 more years.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today on our episode. I really appreciate it.
Jim.
Appreciate it. Yeah. This is Ed Guzman from Life 102.5. Make sure to check it out. Again, this is Main Street Marketing Podcast. Great conversation today, and we've got a lot more conversations coming up in the future. So be sure to like us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and check out all our upcoming episodes as well as the last ones. And again, thanks for watching the Main Street Marketing Podcast, and many, many successes. Hey, thanks for watching the latest episode of the Main Street Marketing Podcast. We really hope you got some great information. If you know somebody else who can use it, share it and like it, because we want to help as many business owners as we can. And also, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell, so as we release more episodes, we can give you even more content to help you in your business. Thanks.